Hello, and thank you for choosing to view my video presentation today. My name is Paul Brett. I'm a Senior Software Support Analyst supporting the HCL Integration Platform software offering from HCL. Today's topic is installing HIP Design Server and REST API Dockers on the Linux platform. As a starting point for this entire process, I have taken a copy of the Red Hat based CentOS operating system and installed it as a virtual machine. I used CentOS 7.8. I then disabled SE Linux and also the firewall daemon just to make connections easier. The next step was I installed the Docker daemon and applied all the relevant updates, then ensured that that was working. All of these are well documented on other videos, so I won't go through them here. I then downloaded a couple of installation programs from HCL. They both ended with .gz. I used the gunzip command to unzip them, and that's left me with a couple of tar files, which I shall show you now. As you can see, I have two tar files. The shorter named one, HIP 10.0.30.112 Linux x64, is the runtime, and HIP 10.0.30 install 112.587 and so forth is the design server. So let's extract and install the design server now. I'm going to go to the TMP directory and I'm going to use the tar command to extract the contents of that tar file. Okay, they've been extracted. The next step is to run the install script, but this has to be run as root as it calls the Docker command, and my current user, hcl.user, is not authorized to do that. So let's go to root and run install.sh. This process will take significantly longer than a minute, and so I will fast forward this particular section. Okay, so now that the image has been created, the next thing to do is to start the containers. We do that by running the start script. The 4 containers are started. It's going to take a couple of minutes before the host is up, but in the meantime we can run this command to get a status report on how that's going. Okay, at the moment it's telling us that it's still busy and to wait and have a sip of hot coffee. We'll leave that for a minute or two and then run the command again. Okay, let's give that command one more try now. We've got a lot of green on the screen, so I believe that the design server is up and running. So let's give that a test. Let's fire up our Chrome browser. And we will browse to the IP address of the Docker image. I'm going to go in with HTTPS, and there we go. As you can see, the HCL integration platform HIP Design Server 10.0.3 is up and running. The default user is admin, the default password is admin, and I can sign right in. Straight away I can see that the standard default example project has been installed, process orders, and not much else. So there we go, that's the design server up and running. Let's move on to the next step. On to the next section now. Let's install the REST API. I'm backing my downloads directory, and I'll remind you once again that we've got 2 tar files in there. The first one, the shorter named one, is the runtime, so that needs to be installed before we can create the Docker that is the REST API. So let's do that now. I'm going to go to the opt HCL subdirectory, and there's currently no subfolders in that. I'm going to make a directory called HIP 10.0.30 and then go into that directory. And then from there I'm going to extract the contents of the tar file. time, it would help. Downloads, and then we're putting hip, and then 1. There we go. So that is the content of the runtime installed, and if we just clear the screen and have a look at what we've got, there is a standard runtime install, and in fact if we run //setup, we should be able to run the command server, well at least we could if licensing was available. Okay, we'll cover licensing in another video. For now, let's get on with installing the REST API Docker container. So let's go into the REST API / Docker subdirectory and look at the content here. We have a script called build image, but before we run that, we may need to change some entries in Tomcat users.xml and tx-rest.properties. Okay, so let's first edit Tomcat users. If we don't do this, then we can't go into the management interface later. So let's get this done now. Tomcat users.xml. I'm going to go to the bottom of the file. I am going to remove that line there, and I'm going to instead paste in an alternative set of lines. Hopefully this is going to work. Yes, it does. Okay, I'll include these 3 lines in the notes part of this video. For now, let's just write the changes and then have a look at the changes we potentially need to do to the tx-rest.properties. Big change that I would recommend that you look at would be whether the process runs in fenced or unfenced mode. Running in unfenced mode means that the maps run in the same process as the web server. However, any crashes in the HIP core engine could bring down the web server as well. So running in fenced mode ensures that it runs in a separate process space, but it does, however, require that you have a REDIS server running. I do a little trick when I create the Docker so that the Redis instance from the design server can be reused. So I'm not going to make any changes in this file for now, so let's just quit that for now, and I'm going to need to change to root and run the build script. Now that the Docker image has been created, the next step is to instantiate that image as an actual Docker container. The command to do that is this: docker create --new, give it a name, -it. Okay, now we need to do a port redirect, because we can't use port 8080 on the outside of the container because it's already being used by the HIP server. So we do a redirect. Port 8081 outside goes to the 8080 inside, and finally the image that we want to use. In previous iterations of this create command, I was also redirecting the Redis port 6379, but as I've found that that's actually not required anymore from HIP 1003, as there is a Redis instance inside the container itself. Okay, so we click enter, and that is the container created. The next step is to apply a license to my tx-rest container. Now, while I can't show you the exact command that I use because it's an internal support license, I can give you an example of the type of command that will be used, and I can show you that the output that we would get. So, the command to enter the Docker container is docker exec -it, and we're going into hip rest, and we're running bash. Once we're inside the container, we need to go to the opt runtime directory, run the DTX setup script, and it's this point that we would apply the license. Now here is the kind of command that I would be applying: the DTX licutil, the server, which I have obfuscated here slightly, and a server ID, which once again I have obfuscated. Next step, I will show you the output after applying the correct license with the actual command scrolled off the screen. Okay, I can't show you the previous output from the command, but this bit I can show you. This is what you should get after you've applied your license. You should have some features. There should be an available count, a max count, an expiration date, and a start and issued date. These are the figures I've got. They would be different for you. Okay, so let's come out of the container and restart it. Start hip-rest. Okay, so the container has been created, the license has been applied. In theory now we should be able to connect to the REST API with a browser. So let's try that now. Bring up the browser and let's go to http://192.168, and the REST port has got to be 8081/hip-rest. Okay, this string means that the hip rest is successfully installed and up and running. Next, I'm going to add an additional piece, API-docs, and this shows the Swagger pet store application, the demonstration application that comes with the Apache installation. Next, I'm going to add $URL equals /hip-rest /openapi.json. Here we have the Swagger page for the HCL integration platform REST API 2, and the deprecated API 1 is also available here. Grayed out, but it can still be used. Let's give you an example. List all deployed packages. I click the try it out button, I click the execute button, and I get a count of 0 deployed packages currently. Okay, let's have a look at another URL, which is the endpoint, and let's paste this one in, and let's just take a little bit out, and instead of openapi.json, let's put in v2/docs, and this page will list all the endpoints of all the deployments that you make. So there we go, we've showed you installing the REST API, starting it, and getting to the Swagger documentation for the main API and also the endpoints. I want to thank you for taking the time to view my video presentation today. If you found the content interesting and informative, feel free to hit that like button. It would be great if you could also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.